Welcome to Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. My name is Chris Caramano. As a 15-plus year veteran in the apartment industry, I have stories to tell, a desire to hear and tell other stories. As a multiple committee member for NAA, a CAMT advisory board member and a CAMT holder, and a national presenter and educator, I have met and worked with so many great people in our industry at all different levels. This is not going to be a how-to podcast. This is going to be a how-did podcast. We are going to explore the how-did tales in multifamily maintenance. How did we do it? How did we learn from it? How did we grow? How did we decide not to do it again? Join me as we go beyond the work.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Work. I have an old friend on today. We haven't touched base in a while, but I wanted to say welcome to Steve Donoghue, Director of Maintenance at McCore Management. Steve, thank you for joining me today on this episode of Beyond the Work.
Thanks for having me.
So, Steve, you and I crossed paths in the industry, and you were nice enough to join me for today's show. But for my viewing audience or listening audience, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got into this business, and what you're currently doing at McCore?
Sure. I got into the multifamily industry in 2010, kind of by accident. I was actually a carpenter in the Carpenters Union in that time in 2010. It was pretty tricky to navigate the building world. So I actually had been driving around to construction sites, and there was a multifamily property kind of in my area that was hiring. And I had walked into what I thought was the construction office, but was actually the property management office. They're like, "Oh, come in. We're actually looking for help. What's your skill set? What can you do?" And kind of like your last guest that was on a little while ago, Barry, was, "When can you start?" "Okay, tomorrow." "Great, thank you very much." And just kind of went from there. But the funny part of the story is they were just recently acquired and purchased by another management company. So everybody in the office was the old school. And then when I started on that Monday, the new school was there. So all the new, VPs and marketing people, and they were like, "Who the hell are you?" And I was like, they hired me. I'm here. Like, "Where's your uniform? Did you do your onboarding?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." I'm like used to construction. Like, I show up with a social security card, I sign my name, and I go to work. So it's kind of interesting.
So no, hold on.
Yeah.
I gotta unpack this,
Yeah,
because this is one of those.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of stories. So let me make sure I understand. So you show up, they hire you on the spot.
Yep.
They say, "We'll see you next week," and it's a completely different management company.
It was the same. So it was one management company was there, right? And it was all the new owner kept everybody on board, right?
Okay.
So the new owner and management company were there to take the site over on that Monday. So I was kind of like, just like surprised, like, and the old management company was very like paper, like, we don't do anything. We don't have like property management software. It's handwritten work orders. It's 2010. So it's, technology has come a long way in the last 15 years. So it was actually very funny. One of the VPs, who's still a great colleague of mine, walked up to me and was like, "Who the hell are you? Where's your uniform?" And I'm like, "Hi, I'm Steve. I started 45 minutes ago, and I have no idea anything about multifamily housing." So we kind of had a funny relationship after that. And there was 4 maintenance guys for 216 units. It was a 40-year-old property.
That's not too bad.
Never had a rehab. Their maintenance shop and their stock list was going into vacant apartments, removing items and using those items to fix broken items around the property. So they started a large construction project there. I think it was like a $30 million redevelopment. And as you can imagine, with the old crew of maintenance guys that had been there, one gentleman had been there since they built the building.
Yeah.
Their wheels fell off really fast. People were, abandoning ship. So I find myself 4 months later, the maintenance supervisor, sole employee of a property, and just kind of went from there and worked my way up. Luckily, I landed with a great ownership group and company that kind of, saw that I was, willing to do whatever. I had a interesting skill set and just kind of grew from there. And I stayed with them for quite some time. And I appreciate all the opportunity that I got, being thrust into that situation.
Your story is interesting because you and I started in the industry around the same time. I started in September of 2019, 2009. So right around the same time. We've been around the industry in the same way. But you would think that those are stories that happened in the 80s and 90s, right? We're talking about this stuff is happening in 2010. This stuff is still happening in 2025, where people are showing up on site, management companies are changing, and no offense, Steve, you're a very smart guy. I know, because I've worked with you before. But, somebody started from a carpentry background, went from a maintenance technician to a supervisor in 4.5 months, right? And that is the kind of thing that's happening today. I'm sure you're great at it because look at where you are today. But how many maintenance professionals does that happen to that get thrown by the wayside, or we get kicked out of the business because we promote either too fast, or they're not ready, or because they're there? And yours kind of sounds like it was a because you're there situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that a fair assumption? I don't want to be rude.
Not at all. 100%. Like, when you're the only person on the field to get picked to play, you're number one. So yeah.
Exactly.
But luckily, I was hungry. I was young. I had a family. I wanted to do it. I always had a strong work ethic and like to figure things out on the fly. Luckily, in my younger years, my family owned a construction company, so I kind of was hip to the game, knew all the different like plumbing, HVAC, sprinkler guys, fire. I kind of been through the gamut already.
Right.
So that helped me. I think it was just a very bizarre situation where we both needed each other and we somehow kind of met, and it just really worked out. But I think the great part about that whole situation is that it's helped me today to like what you just said is sometimes you can't promote people too fast, or you don't want to put them like you can put somebody inexperienced and they'll take it because they want the extra money, but you can burn somebody out and they're out of the industry in 4 months and they'll never come back. We need as many people, good people, as we can get, and we're going to give people a fair shot and give them the tools they need to be successful. And just throwing somebody into a hornet's nest and expecting them to make it out alive is, not atypical.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm sure you experience is you either had this said to you or you've said this to somebody else. I don't want to set you up for failure.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, I have learned so much from my failures. Sometimes I hear myself saying it to team members, whether that's not assigning them to a project or not giving them a site, or in some cases not being open to promoting them or expanding their job responsibilities. But at the same time, I feel like it's a double-edged sword because I don't want to set them up for failure, but I've learned so many things from my failures that am I leaving out a key piece of their learning by not setting them up for failure?
Yeah, well, I agree, but if there was somebody there to help me not fail that badly in some instances, I think it would have been good. It would definitely saved a lot of money.
Of failure.
I've definitely, roasted some motors, and I've definitely, broken some boilers. Don't tell anybody, but I've definitely done some things where if somebody could have just said, "Hey, I don't do that because of X, Y, Z," it would have helped me in the long run. That's kind of, the way I like to approach things now. Be like, "Hey, listen, I've done this before. I've screwed it up. Like, it's not the way to do it." Small things you can let people kind of trip a little bit and help them up, but the larger things where it can be a safety issue, you definitely got to definitely hold people's hands a little bit.
In my younger days, I was of the opinion. It's funny you said like I burnt some motor, you burnt some boilers and things like that. In my younger days, I'm like, well, it's already broken. I can't make it more broken. Yeah. And then in my later years, I'm like, oh, I can definitely take something that's broken, make it more broken, and make it more expensive.
Yes, absolutely.
So I have a much different philosophy now about, if you don't know how to fix something, move on and find somebody who does, because you trying to fix it might not actually be better than the alternative.
Yeah. Or that whole thing, like, like when you first start out in the industry and like the elevator breaks, right? You're like, oh my God, it's my fault. I can't tell anybody. I have to try to like hide it or like figure out a way to fix it. Like, the whole like mentality still like when you show up somewhere and like you didn't build it, right? You didn't design it. It broke. All right.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out. Let's fix it. Like, don't hide things because it's just going to snowball and create way more of a problem than if we just talk about it now, as you say, rip off the band-aid and we'll just move forward. And then we know and like everything's okay. We just got to fix it. Right.
Absolutely. So you've been in the business a little over 15 years, ballpark. What are you doing now?
So I am the director of maintenance for McCore Management. It's a property management company based out of Needham. We have properties from Tennessee, Georgia, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, kind of spread out all over the place. And, great company. The owners are great. They're very open to new ideas and new ways of looking at things. It's kind of refreshing to walk in somewhere where it's not so like everything is like you ride those train rails and you don't get off. Like everybody's very open to listening to what you have to say and really talking through it. And so director of maintenance there right now. We also have a side consulting business called McCore Housing Solutions, where we are offering NSPIRE consulting and also the service of doing the repair work from the NSPIRE inspection.
Awesome. So talk to me about that. You and I have affordable housing experience. We've worked together and talked a little bit about NSPIRE. I have my own personal feelings. Some of them I've shared in previous episodes, but where do you see the current NSPIRE program? And just to refresh everybody's memory, those are the national standards of inspection of real estate from HUD.
Correct.
So they are the inspection protocols designed and set forth by the Housing and Urban Development Division of the federal government. And they came into play, we're two and a half years in to,
oh yeah, almost 3
if I'm
years.
not mistaken.
Yeah.
So what do you see the state, let's not get political.
Yep.
We're going to talk about government regulation. We're going to talk about a couple of different topics regarding government regulation, NSPIRE being the first one of them. But without getting political, where do you see the current NSPIRE standards going? And what have been some of your in the field experiences?
I feel like most of the new NSPIRE standards are basically a CYA or trying to get away from liability of HUD walking into a property, inspecting it, saying, "Oh, you get a 97. This place is great," and then there's some sort of a fire or something happens, and
Interesting take.
So I feel like HUD is like, "All right, we're going to inspect these properties, but we're going to make you tell us that you fixed it 24 hours after we see it, so that we are no longer liable and it is on you." The new standards, I from a multifamily person, I enjoy that they're a little bit more lenient on some of those like trip hazards on the exterior of the building or the common areas. It's not as like you have a single building in an NSPIRE. It's a lot different than having a single building on a REAC where, back 15 years ago, you were putting up sheds on the outside and putting temp power to them to game the system. And I do like how they have changed that. But I just feel like whoever is creating these standards needs to put a committee together or something that involves people in the multifamily housing world, because someone who's not versed in this field writing the scope of what we have to abide by is very difficult to even understand in people's brains. You read that NSPIRE standard and it's like reading how to assemble IKEA furniture backwards and upside down. It's just some of the stuff does not make any logical sense, or it's even very difficult to interpret and understand. As you know, there's multiple people out there you can ask the same question to, and we all have a different understanding of what they're looking for. And the inspector has a completely different understanding of what he's looking for. So it's very hard to play by rules that nobody understands.
Yeah, and Steve, I've been living this for, as an industry, we've been living it for 2.5 years. Some of us have been living with it longer. We're part of the demos and listening sessions and things like that. And I did take part in some of them. I will tell you that while they didn't do a great job, they were listening, and there were lots of changes that were made. along the way. And we still have some changes that are coming because, one of the major parts of this was that the standards are going to be revisited every 3 years. And it's fun because we're coming up on that. Let's see if it actually happens.
Yeah.
Right. But one of the things that I found interesting that you said in all the years that I've been working on this, I always looked at it through the lens, the protocols and the standards for deficiencies really being about the health and safety of our residents, which it absolutely is. But I'll be honest, I never really thought about it through the CYA lens for both HUD and housing authorities that also use the standards. I think the new protocols and more focus on the units is definitely more cover your ass for them, but it's more for us as well, right? It's, as owners and operators, managers, it's really important that we are also doing these things. But I never really thought about it through that lens. It was to keep down the lawsuits or the press coverage or, when a deficiency is found. But I can definitely see it that way, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think I see it going more towards that like self-certification phase for properties who, have always done fairly well. I don't think we're going to continue to see these third-party inspectors showing up at properties and doing inspections much anymore, just because of the way, budgeting and voting has been going. So I think we're going to see some nips and tucks places, and that's probably one of them where, everybody shouldn't be penalized for the few outlying bad properties that can't perform well. So I think we'll go to that self-certification phase. And the ones that, habitually fail and don't do well, they should be targeted and they should be inspected more frequently.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've had, I don't want to say pleasure because it was anything but I've had to be on some sites where they needed a heavy amount of government oversight. I've seen and heard about sites from inspectors. I've seen them personally where the owners weren't necessarily doing the right thing for the their personal asset, but also for their residents. So while as much as it's a government oversight is not always the greatest thing, I think for us as an industry, there are bad actors out there, and that's really what it should be there for, not to penalize good owners and operators that maybe forgot to change a light bulb or that morning an exit sign broke, and that just happened to be the moment in time, the beloved moment in time that the inspector was at the site. That's not a vision that there's a problem. It's when there's 50 exit signs that are broken or
exactly. Yeah.
None of the doors and, none of the apartment doors self-close.
So we vote to propose there be an NSPIRE mulligan, right? So you get one mulligan on every.
Oh, I love it. I won't tell you. I won't tell you or anybody listening about some of the mulligans that I have begged for and wished for on inspections because they're moment in time, right? And
I mean, you look at some just from doing so many of these. I had the privilege of when I first started working at the property management company I was at, there was this REACT guru, and we just happened to hit it off, and he just gave me so much information so quickly that it really sparked my interest, because I was like, who else does this besides you? And he was like, nobody really. He's like, this is my thing. He's like, I do it, on the side. This is my thing. And I'm like, oh, I want to be like this guy. I want to have this niche thing. And, just kind of following him around and seeing all the tricks of the trade and, preparing for the inspector, labeling the rent roll for them. So they walk in, they don't have to do it. Just those nice things that you don't know unless you have somebody kind of guiding you.
There's lots of tips and tricks out there that, if guys like us that were doing it right, we do so many of them. I often at Apartmentalize the last couple of years, I've had the honor of doing a session on NSPIRE, and we always take audience questions, and I do it so much that I don't even think, about it. But then there'll be somebody in the audience that has a question for a property that maybe has one NSPIRE, only ever had one NSPIRE. and they don't have people and resources like, me or you on their staff. But it's always very enlightening to see what little information is out there about something that's a national standard.
Yes. Yeah.
And it affects our industry so incredibly deeply.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting that, I know the NSPIRE standards very well, obviously, because we do a lot of third-party.
Live it, breathe it. Yeah.
But it is very interesting when you go to hit that link to just refresh yourself on the standard, how many times it's changed, and there's no note that says, hey, we updated the standard. It's like, oh, hey, thanks, guys. Like, I just happened to check it. My link no longer works because you obviously changed something, and you got to reread through whatever to try to figure it out. But that's, like you were just saying about those single sites that don't have a lot of, people like you or I or resources. We're kind of trying to fill that gap and, offer like, hey, we'll inspect your property. And as I go through, I can explain to you why this is a finding and how to repair it. And if you don't have the resources to do it, like we can come in and do it for you. Because as you know, juggling React or NSPIRE prep is not an easy thing if you haven't done it consistently, and it's all really based upon how good was your initial inspection. Because if you're missing stuff on your initial inspection, your orders won't be right. You can't give direction to the staff on what to look for in certain units, and you're going back through every unit again. And as you know,
yeah,
doesn't work.
It's interesting because it's not just affordable. It's not just 100% affordable housing properties. This affects any site that has, whether it's 1 or 1,000 subsidized units. That one unit that's subsidized is falling under the NSPIRE protocol pretty much no matter what program they're under too, right? Whether it's a HUD program, it's a local housing authority program, state program. They're kind of, everybody's using the standards, or going to be using them real soon if they didn't go into effect yet.
Yeah, I just find it odd that certain things score differently for certain programs, but
that's probably another topic for another day. I like numbers attached. I was in school, I always liked letter and number grades better than I liked pass fail.
Yeah, C- is good.
Yeah, C- is fine. Even a high D is perfectly acceptable in our worlds. But yeah, it was the pass fail stuff on the PBVs and things and housing choice vouchers is problematic.
Because, but I don't think that the inspectors actually realize, like, okay, there's a shower head that may have a small drip. You're going to not let a family move in tomorrow because of that. Like,
exactly.
There's a lot of people's situations tied to this unit passing. But if you walk in and it's a complete mess, I 100% agree for the health and safety. But some of the people that are or residents that are trying to move into these units are desperate, and we can't throw more roadblocks and barriers, especially with owners who have housing. Some of them are like, I don't want to have affordable housing because I got to jump through too many hoops. But I can have a house that's half falling down, and you can spend $4,000 a month on it, and you don't have to do anything. So I think we got to have a little bit of a better system where we're not keeping people from moving in when it's just a repair that's really superficial.
And hopefully they've HUD has gotten, and the REACT Center has gotten enough data from 2.5 years that when a major revision comes, that we will actually see some of that change. Let's put aside the fact the federal government DOGE cuts, because who knows what the future is. We just have to hope that that there will be some changes that we've been talking about, and that were signed into law 3 years ago, when these were 4 years ago when they were accepted. So we'll just wait and see on that. Don't want to talk all about government regulation, but I know another, it's really an audience killer. I hope you're all still with us.
Yeah.
So
we're having a good time. That's all.
You got the HUD side. And I'm going to be honest, the next topic, I do not I don't know anything about. So I'm going to ask you to teach me a little bit about the next area of government regulation, which is the transition of the refrigerants over to A2Ls.
Yes, propane-based refrigerants. Yep.
Propane-based refrigerants. I really don't. I'm not even feigning ignorance. I don't do a lot of HVAC. I never really have. It's something that I was always like, let me find somebody to do that.
Yeah.
But it is a big thing that's affecting our industry right now because there has been a huge shift. I saw the shift from R22. I was in the industry when R22 transitioned over to like the 410As of the world. You know, we saw the change from the HFCs to the CFCs, but now we're going into a completely different game with these A2Ls. So teach me a little bit about the new regulations when it comes to refrigerants.
So as of the beginning of this year, manufacturers are no longer allowed to produce R410A equipment, right? So whatever's left on the shelf is what's left on the shelf.
I'm so glad I installed a brand new air conditioner last October.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, a lot of people in the same boat where they were like, "Oh my God, like, why did you give me this 410?" Well, it's because we were trying to
It's
move
what
it
was available.
Yeah,
right? We're trying to get it out, rid of it.
trying to get out of the shelves. Yeah, and then after I think it's December of this year, like, who knows, the regulations may change, but they're staying pretty firm. You can no longer install 410A equipment, so it's all going to be the new refrigerant. Um, so it's just very difficult to navigate when you're in a building and you got R22 systems still, and you can't get a coil, and you can't get a condenser, and you can't get a compressor because everybody needs one. And so you have to look at this as a full system replacement. And a lot of these buildings, as you know, like that the new construction buildings are not equipped to have things changed, like spray foam, blown in insulation, line sets stuffed everywhere, CPVC. It's a mess. So it's like trying to work on a Ferrari. It's a very high performance machine with all these certifications and all this equipment, but when you have to remove it and replace it, it just becomes very difficult. So you got to kind of think outside the box. How am I going to fit on this 200 unit complex that has 200 units? And where am I going to put all these condensers? Because the new condensers, the heat pumps, the high output heat pumps are massive. And you don't want to take a nice, beautiful landscape building and make it look like, Starship Enterprise when people walk into the leasing office. So there's a lot of new technology out there that can be used, but it's difficult to use it because, as you know, we're all looking at costs, looking at how much things are to install and what you get for a rebate and what equipment should I use long term, and is the resident going to be in the way of their furniture? Like, so it's so many things to navigate. Going through it at a couple of properties now, and there's some new technology that's great, but getting the utility companies on board to support it and give you the incentive like they would on like a Samsung high output heat pump, it's very difficult. So I feel like as an industry, we got to kind of come together here and think outside the box and figure out a good way to navigate this, because really nobody has a great answer right now.
Yeah. So, I've heard that you have to replace entire line, and please correct me if I say something incorrect, but that, there's no real drop-in equivalent, like 410A, you were able to reuse some parts, like the line set, if you gave them a good cleaning and, all that. But I hear that you can't necessarily do that with the new refrigerants.
You can wash the line set in some instances. It depends on manufacturer's recommendations, obviously. But if you have a leak between your compressor and your evaporator coil in the unit, why are you going to reuse the line set? Like, you're not going to try to find the needle in the haystack, so you're going to replace it. And as you know, in new construction, nothing is ever a straight run, right? And you don't want to walk into somebody's apartment that's spending $4,000 a month and start making Swiss cheese out of their ceiling to pull line sets through. So, we actually found a pretty interesting little micro heat pump that we're starting to entertain and experiment with in a few places. It's almost like a PTAC unit, but it has it has two intakes and exhausts on the outside. That it works as its own little heat pump with nothing on the inside of the unit, but a nice little register. So systems like that, units like that, we can try to get around having to run new line sets because everything's compact. But then you're gonna put dedicated circuits in, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's, I think that I know that's what I lived through, the R22 to 410A transition, and I watched the prices exponentially rise for R22. I watched the owners and operators that I was working for at the time saying, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And then it became a huge deal because exactly what you're talking about happened. And, we've lived through this once in the last decade and a half, right? Because if I saw it, it happened in the last 16 years. And I think that, it happened again. And I think we're still not as prepared because we're not looking at, was just at a new construction the other day. And I said, well, what kind of units do you have? Well, we've already put in 410A. Well, the law was signed years ago, but nobody had the forethought to put in the new legal equipment in the design spec, which happens far too often in rehabs and far too often in new construction. Is that like, hey, it's what's available, right? But it won't be available at the time of CO.
Yeah.
When they move in.
And
that equipment's no longer available and it's no longer easily replaceable.
And the GC says, that sounds like a you problem. Right? That's, we're going to put it in and we're going to move on.
I think I want to, yeah. I think I'm just going to have a sign that says me problem because everything that gets put on, everything that I bring up, it's a me problem.
Yes. Yeah, people don't realize that like new construction properties are so much more difficult than old buildings.
Or even going through rehabs. I go through a lot of rehabs, and these things are designed, years. MEP engineering drawings are done years before ground is even broken, and it's like, well, that's the Bible, And then you have a big government regulation. I was walking a new construction site the other day. Not to go back to NSPIRE, but it's still kind of relevant, right? I'm walking this building and I'm standing in a bedroom and they just put the sheetrock up on the walls. They've installed all the smoke detectors, but it's still not a finished unit. And I had to look at the owner and said, when are you putting all the smoke detectors in the bedrooms? And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, you're under NSPIRE standards, even though it's not a HUD building. The city agency that would be signing off on the units uses the NSPIRE standards. So they have to go back and install another 175 hardwired smokes. They've closed the walls. Like it's closed, right? They have to put in new interconnected smoke detectors because actually it's more than 100. It's 175 units. Ones, twos, threes. You're talking probably 300 to 350 smoke detectors that have to be installed, or they're not going to get sign off for occupancy.
Yeah, and there was a very short stint out there where they were offering the wireless interconnect, and if you played with those, you know how well that went.
Yeah, it didn't. No. But yeah, it's new construction and they're there, so they have to. But it was one of those things. It's like, well, they didn't design it. And I'm like, well, because nobody looked at the standards and nobody updated it. It's the same issue with these government regulations to, tie it all together is new constructions and rehabs are not, I hear this from so many of my friends in the industry.
Yeah, it's not
yourself
true.
Included. The right people are not talking to the right people, right? The people who are designing buildings or developing properties are not talking to the operators in the field like myself, like you, that would know these things at the design phase.
And everybody gets mad at you, and I'm like, I didn't write the rule. I'm just trying to make sure you don't have to
tell you what the rule is. I want to give a quick plug to my friends Mark Sharp over Multifamily Mixtape and Paul Rhodes at the Maintenance Mindset, because they both have done extensive podcasts, and they also both do training on the refrigerant changeover. So check out both of their shows and get some really good insight information on those. Steve, you definitely check it out, but I want the listening audience to check them out too, because they had some really great episodes on this specific topic.
Yeah, no, I mean, even just going back and listening to your shows and, all the resources out there, like just listening to other people talk about it, there's so many things you learn from a short, 45-minute thing and relate to. And it's almost like therapy on my drive
Honestly, I think this is one of the many reasons that I do this is that like, oh, I don't feel alone anymore when I get to talk to other maintenance professionals or industry professionals. And I'm like, oh, we are actually all in this together. So I want to shift gears. Let's get away from government regulation. You are a director of maintenance. And I'm sure you get as many phone calls or emails on a daily basis as I do about prop tech, about new AI solutions to make your life easier, new technology to make your life easier. Because our supplier partners, vendors out there see Steve Donoghue, director of maintenance. Ah, Steve, I have a deal for you. Let's have a short call, and I'm going to tell you how my product could save your life. Maybe some of them you've used. I have. I have demoed some. But what is some of the technology out there right now that you are utilizing without plugging anybody's name? I
Yeah,
just want to
absolutely.
talk in general, right? What are some of the technologies that you're using right now, and how are you using it to make your life easier and your teams and your company's operations better?
Yeah, so we're in the midst of a trial right now with some new softwares that we're looking at. But the most I think beneficial thing that I've used so far is the 3D modeling tools that are out there that can give you like a 3D as built of your property and allow you to kind of walk it, do takeoffs. You know, as you know, traveling somewhere takes half your day. If you can go onto this
Yeah.
3D model and you can get your shingles down to 20 feet on a 100 square
Wow.
building, then that's, can be used as a scope. And I don't have to leave the office and I can put 4 or 5 scopes together in a day versus doing just one because I got to walk to the site. I got to field measure everything. Um, and for also that the same 3D modeling programs can track your capital expenditures as to the faucet that I bought came through Home Depot. It's the SKU number, and it gets that by scrubbing your property management's invoices and tying all those items directly to that apartment. Um, so the technology is it's still new, and there's obviously things that you have to kind of work with, and you got to put some workflows in and your invoice inputs to get it to spit out what you want. But I just feel like using that AI, using that technology to be more efficient and to be able to accomplish more in a day is been huge. Especially trying to learn a few new sites, new to this management company. It's been very helpful to use.
So talk me through, 3D modeling seems very interesting to me. I oversee way too many sites in way too many states. So, and I know a lot of my counterparts, yourself included, you've listed off, you're down south and you're up in the Northeast. How does the 3D modeling software just generically, how does it work?
So some companies use AI to like scrub the internet for, say, Chris, you took a picture and you're in an apartment complex, and obviously the picture has a geolocation for where you are. Hey, I'm at so and so
Okay.
apartments, and they can see the cabinets behind you from your Facebook picture. They can use that data to kind of be like, oh, hey, he's in this apartment. It has this style cabinet, and then it can
That's
kind
great.
of
that
yeah,
makes me feel so great.
yeah,
I'm going to
it
go
can
and
kind of start to like tailor the
I'm going to
building.
destroy every piece of social media I have.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, so it just uses like data from the internet to just kind of put it together. Obviously, if you have a site map or a pre-existing as built, that's great. But we kind of threw one property that we had as builds for and said here, and one that we said, sorry, we have no information whatsoever. Figure it out. And it took a few more days, but yeah, we were able to get a 3D model that was very accurate down to the amount of outlets that were inside the units.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and we
That
used it.
kind of
We
blows
kind of
that kind of blows my mind.
yeah, and we kind of used it to. We had some pricing on a painting project, and we were like, oh, somebody already went out there and measured everything. Let's use this to see how close they are, and it was I think it was in about 50 linear feet on 30 buildings. So we're talking like pretty accurate.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of AI technology when it's used right and it's for the right reasons, that sounds like a really good use of data mining. And, I mean, you could probably send, I've done demos where you can send a maintenance team member. We're not using anything, but you can send them in with their phone, do a quick, 360 view and, hit upload. And now that gives them all the information that they need. And you can do it on one vacant, and then you can kind of extrapolate it, with floor plans and all that other stuff. So I find that pretty interesting technology. What kind of technology or AI functionality are you using for your on-site teams, or are you yet?
Not
Which is
yet.
a big hurdle.
I mean, besides the, you have your property calls and you kind of let AI take the notes, and spit those out at the end. But I have some trust issues with AI. I want to deploy it and use it, but I also want to verify it because I think some of the information is great, but there's always that little piece in there. Like I used AI to scrub a spreadsheet one time, and I turned all the 6s to 8s and all the 8s to 6s. So that can, that could wreck your day right there. So I like it. I mean, it definitely cuts your workload down, but you still have to look at it. So
What other technologies are out there that you're using? Are you using any technology for capital?
We're starting to use that one we talked about. It kind of scrubs through your invoicing. So if you have like a renovation project, it would be tagged when you upload the invoice as a renovation project, and it knows, okay, this is going to go to this program, and we're going to tag it to this apartment. So then you can get a report of whatever that GL is for that renovation project at that property.
Where do you hope technology goes in the next couple of years?
I mean, I hope it continues to advance, but I just hope it gets a little bit more refined. I think it's moving so fast, and there's so many players jumping on the bandwagon that, sometimes people might spit software a little bit too quickly and haven't, really made sure it works 100%. So.
Yeah, living, and I've talked about this before, but living in the post-COVID world, it was like the prop tech giants or the prop tech gods woke up and they said, "Oh, let's help the most underserved in the multifamily industry." And everybody was like, here's some prop tech for maintenance. Here's some prop tech for maintenance. And it's like, whoa, okay. Like
flooded. Yeah.
In the last 4 or 5 years, we've been flooded, and some of it is fantastic, and some of it is just regurgitations of iterations of other softwares that we've already seen or some of us are using. So I think it's great that the pendulum is swinging our way, because we are seeing it make our on-site teams' lives better. Definitely in our regional and director levels, we're being able to utilize a new tool for our toolbox, which is what I always tell my maintenance team members when they're like, "Well, I don't like using mobile work orders, or I can't use mobile work orders." And I said, "Would you say the same thing about your screwdriver?" And they look at me like dumbfounded. And I'm like, "Do you know how to use your screwdriver?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course I know how to use my screwdriver." And I said, "Well, how do you think I would react if you said, I don't want to use my screwdriver anymore?" And they said, "Well, you'd probably fire me." Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to fire anybody, but it's kind of the same thing with tech, right? It's like, it's a tool for your tool bag. You can't tell me that you're going to use 9 out of the 10 tools in your tool bag, but you refuse to use that 10th tool because you don't know how to use it. You don't like using it. You've never used it before. Your father didn't use it. Your mother didn't use it. But those are the things that we hear when it comes to tech.
People are very hesitant for the tech for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I go back to the tool in the tool bag, right? It's like, but at the same time, these are the same maintenance professionals that'll tell you, "Oh, this great gadget that they found to blow out condensate lines," know? And it's like, but you don't have a problem with technology, because that's technology. That is, an advanced tool. They use digital tape measures. Oh my God, I had a moment. But you see them using all of these digital things, but the cell phone in their pocket that they use probably 9 hours a day for personal use, they don't know how to use it when it comes to work, which
Yeah.
Right. Steve, you experienced this too, right? I'm not crazy. I don't live in a vacuum, right?
Just yesterday, as a matter of fact. So, yeah.
So, that's, I think I'm going to have like a new, I've started on my last few episodes, Chris's soapbox moment. I think my soapbox moment today is the tech tool usage or non-usage.
I would just like to ask that all the software developers out there make all of the programs work equally as well on Android devices and Apple devices. Please, somebody, if we can, get internet from a satellite, we should be able to make two different devices work the same.
Don't you hate that? Like, it's like I'll be sitting there, I'll be talking to I'm an Android user, don't judge. But I'll sit there with my Apple friends and we have PropTech. There's a program that we use for our site visits. The output on my Android is so much better than the Apple. And we sit there and I'm like, well, can't you just go get a better phone? Go get an Android. So your reports, it's the same software, but the output is completely different.
Yeah,
it makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, yesterday we did this whole training for, doing an app, for work orders, and it's like all the Apple users are great. Well, the other half, the Android users can't use it because it doesn't function right.
Right.
So it's just very frustrating.
It is very frustrating. So we have covered government, some very exciting stuff today, NSPIRE changes and refrigerant government regulation and tech. As we start to wind down this episode, Steve, is there anything that you want to share or talk about as we close out this episode of Beyond the Work?
Just kind of want to talk about trying to keep the younger generation interested in the trades. So if you can do any volunteer work at your local vocational schools, or go in and talk, and just a lot of kids, a lot of families, that are homeowners don't really know anything about the multifamily world. I still meet, I have a daughter who's 20 and I have a daughter who's 6, and I meet both families. They're like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Well, do you have 35 minutes?" I work in multifamily housing. Like, what's that? So I think just keeping people educated that there's a whole industry out there that's fantastic. I mean, this is a recession-proof industry for the most part, but we got to find good people and keep them interested. So if you're in the industry and you can get to a Voc school or any kind of area where kids are interested in trades, and just let them know that we're here, and we're willing to do training and hire you for just about anything. You could show up and we'll hire you the next day and you could start. No questions asked.
Just like Steve Donoghue.
And Barry, right?
And Barry. No, at the same time, I say this all the time, is that roughly a third of Americans rent, whether they're in an apartment community or they're renting houses. So they are in the multifamily industry, a third of the U.S. population. That's a hard statistic from the government. It's about I think it's 31 or 32% are in a rental situation. A third of Americans live where we work. Why do not we recruit more from that third of the U.S.? Yeah. We have people living on our properties. If you were to recruit one person from every property, every multifamily property, we would immediately stop our work shortage, whether that's on the office or the maintenance side, for that matter. I mean, either or. But it's amazing that we have people living with us that we don't recruit. And I think that's where I'd like to see our business and our industry really focus in the coming years, is for our workforce development, is focus where they live, which is with us. Steve Donoghue, thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of Beyond the Work. Real pleasure having you today, buddy.
Thank you.
To my loyal listeners, whether it was your first time or you've been here the entire time, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Beyond the Work. Please like, subscribe, share this podcast with your friends. If you are interested in being a guest, do like Steve did. Send me a message, reach out. I'd love to talk to you. I want to hear maintenance stories. I want to hear industry stories, and everybody deserves to hear your story and go beyond the work.
Thank you for joining me for this episode. No matter how long you've been in our industry or what position you have at your company or your community, everyone has a maintenance story to tell. Go to www.multifamilymedianetwork.com and leave me a voice message or share your information, and we can tell your tale together on a future episode. Please check out our sponsors and like, subscribe, and follow to this podcast or video, and join the Multifamily Media News Network newsletter for upcoming shows and blogs from me and the other great hosts on our network. Our stories all connect us. See you for the next chapter.